Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the US. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the US and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for institutionaladvisors.com. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Hi, Jim. It's good to be with you.
It's a banner day in Toronto. The TSX hits a new interday high.
Yeah,
is the excitement for real?
Oh, when it's on, it's real. And the markets are very positive. I guess the last good correction we had was in the summer when the NASDAQ, which it can move, it sold off, and it gave us what we call a springboard buy signal. And that was in July. And that model is designed to give, as we call it, a springboard buy in a rising, generally long trend rising market or flat market. So with that, it's launched. Now we're out to new highs on the NASDAQ, and it's up, 3% today? No, 2% on the NASDAQ, and then within that, the QQQs, which include the FANG stocks, it's up 2.5%. So it's a very remarkable bull market. The news this week is that the Republican Party is finally making some headway on tax reform. And I think I should add a little on this, that the intention is to reduce the rate of taxation. This may or may not reduce the tax revenues to government. But actually cutting the tax revenues to government would be a good thing anyways. But it's very pro-business stuff, which is what, going back a year ago, going into the U.S. election, the stock market was a bit weak. Uncertainty, definite uncertainty about the election. And then on our technical work, we got a springboard buy on the S&P on November the 3rd. But the election results did really run out. The election was on the 8th, and then the results were on the 9th. And then the big, powerful rally started. And it has been discounting a turn to a pro-business administration. And this has been rather dramatic because the Obama administration was easily the most anti-business and the most anti-freedom administration in the U.S. history. So that's remarkable. So then that really boosted the markets into December when we started calling it rational exuberance, which was an irony based on 1996 when then Chairman Greenspan of the Fed said that the high valuations, that was irrational exuberance. But from December it was rational exuberance because it was discounting a reform probable. And then now the reform is moving ahead, and the stock market is at very much higher prices since then, and also, as we've been saying, extremely high valuations relative. The index I like on that one is relative to the average wage rate. So it takes so many hours to earn a unit of S&P. It's up there. It's very high. And then you're getting very positive economic numbers, like jobless claims, all the way down to the lowest since 1973. And then that's sort of like something that economists watch. And then you've got the on the bulls and bears, the AII bullish bearish sentiment reading, which is an assessment of what a whole lot of market letter writers are stating, and it's the most bullish since 1987. So a lot of good is coming on the economy side with reform, and the excitement this week is that it looks like the Republicans are capable of getting their act together and making a step towards that reform. There's been very much hostilities towards the Trump administration, and but you have that a change going on within the Republican Party itself. And so the other one that perhaps may be helping this is that where, as they call them, the Rhino Republicans have been askance at Trump's style and perhaps concerned about the accusations by the Democrats, the old claim that Hillary lost the election because the Russians came in and pushed the election towards Trump. It's coming out that it's all the opposite. So a lot of where people might be concerned about Trump's dealings, it's the bad part is actually on the Democratic committee and Hillary's side. And this is huge scandal. Then there's the one about getting control of so much U.S. uranium production. And if you go back to the 1940s and 50s, where the Rosenbergs were put on trial for feeding the secrets on how to develop atomic bombs and nuclear bombs to the Russians, they were charged and tried for treason and found guilty and executed. Then afterwards, documentation as the Soviet Union collapsed, historians got into the files, and indeed they were had connections with the Russian spies. So now hear what this business of the way this deal went with the uranium possibly is tainted by the word treason, and we'll see how this develops. So there's a scandal developing, Jim, that could be the biggest in U.S. history, and it's all on the side of the Democrats and the pursuit of big government and the attack upon individual freedoms. So this is very fascinating. We'll watch it closely.
Right, the Russian uranium deal where apparently they paid a lot of money to the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah, and it goes through a Vancouver market character called Frank Justra. He was involved in there somehow. So we'll see how it all comes out. But it's going to be seen that what some writers call the deep state, and I begin to use it because I think it's rather good, you have a huge built-in resistance to reform, and it's in the IRS tax department. It's in the certain echelons of the FBI, the Justice Department, because the way that proceeds on political scandal and potential criminal activities at the politicians' level is that the FBI investigates, takes the evidence, and gives it to the Department of Justice. Then Justice decides whether to prosecute or not. Whereas this one with Comey as head of the FBI, he last summer when he gave this testimony, reviewed Hillary's record, you thought, hey, they're going to get her. There's so many offenses there. Then said, oh, but it's so he prejudged the Justice Department. And then now there's another one come out whereby he wrote off that she's okay type of letter even before any interviews or investigation was done. So he's a corrupt character, and unfortunately corrupted a fine investigative agency, and not every FBI person is corrupt, but it allowed itself to be corrupt. So it is the most remarkable corruption, and what it was done for was that the apparatus of government and its selected party, the Democrats, and had Hillary won, this would have been a huge step to a perpetual one-party system. And I did not mention the media, which has become totally corrupt as well, and was very ambitious to have a one-party system, and anybody who questioned the wisdom or the ambition of a one-party system was immediately labeled as a heretic. Well, we've seen that before when in the 1500s and into the early 1600s, when in Europe the church became corrupted by the bureaucracy and became an evil empire, to use Ronald Reagan's terms. So this is very exciting times to be aware of politically what's going on.
We'll have more with Bob Hoye right after the break.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Hoye. Bob, copper's had a terrific run over the year. I remember in recent history it was around $2, and now we're over $3. It's pulled back a bit. What's happening there?
Oh, yeah. It became very popular, rallied up. Now, just to put in, I'm looking at the ETF on it, because I can't get the daily, but it's down 2.8% today. And on this ETF, the high was 37 on 15th of October. Then it sold off. The next rally was 36.64, and now it is down to 35.29. So that's a break. And then earlier, I'd looked at the other base metals because until a month ago, zinc was very popular, and prior to that, lead had been quite fashionable. And today, all five of the key aluminum, copper, lead, zinc, and nickel were all down. And then I also looked at lithium, which has been one of the hot favorite darlings, exotic metals. And, of course, it's the lightest of all metals, so I guess it was easier to push the chart up. And it is stalling out. And the other favorite with the speculative community is cobalt, and it's had a terrific run, and it appears to be stalling out. So the lead here by copper is very interesting. It can be very market sensitive, and obvious today it's telling a story, and as are the other base metals. Now, on the positive side, we've got oil. Crude oil is up $1 into the 53.73. It's having a good move. I don't know why, because we're also looking at the U.S. dollar index has been bottoming, and just a minute, I'll put that one in.
Well, the Canadian dollar right now isn't doing very well either.
Yeah, well, that's sort of been called the commodity currency. And it was very positive, and bang, it changed quickly. It was down quite a bit yesterday and continued today, because what you got here is the U.S. dollar is firmer yet. Now, in the last 2 days of trade in the U.S. dollar, it has accomplished a breakout. And at the 1st of September, it was down to 91. And it was very oversold. We noted the technical conditions at the time. And, yeah, it was the first week in September down to 91, then up to 94 rally, back down into the 92 level, where it found support at the 50-day moving average, and then with the swing since stayed above, but then yesterday, the big day up to 94.51, and it's continued today. So this is, I think this is going to go right up to the 200-day moving average, which is at the 96 level. So, and when the whole of the world has been bearish on the U.S. dollar and positioned for that. Now, you can be positioned in any number of ways for a decline in the U.S. dollar. They've been, long base metals is a natural. Long crude is another one. So long commodities, except that the agricultural, the grains have been just too doggy to even position in. But these are other ones. So these, you've had pretty long-term rallies in the basic commodities, and people are well positioned, and it's not going their way. So there's going to be some sell-offs here, selling pressures. Now, also, we can have a low for copper, like in November, December kind of thing. Then also you can have a seasonal low for crude oil further out, like in December, January. But at the moment, today the crude is strong. But with the continuing, now that the technical work has been accomplished of setting a base for the dollar, its continued rise is going to mess up a whole lot of parties. It's going to be fascinating to watch. So now on the overall stock market, a couple of weeks ago we noted it looked like that the Dow Jones itself wanted to go into a bubble-type zoom, which it has been doing. Going back to July, we had the springboard buy on the NASDAQ, and it is now, as of today, very hot. Now, there's these kind of rallies where we are getting upside exhaustions. On this kind of a culmination of a bull market, you could have a number of rallies to these extremes. And then we've also noted that you've had big bull markets complete sort of late December into January, the turn of the year effect. It was the U.S. stock market in 1973 reached its high on January the 11th, and the worst bear market since the 30s followed. And you had, of course, the NASDAQ mania in 1989. That peaked in the last trading day of the year. And then the huge gold speculation and silver speculation that ran into 1980, that peaked on January 21st. So, there is the record of big speculations concluding at the turn of the year. So now that would be our outside on this. And anything can happen between now and then. Just depends how spiky it gets on the way up. So we have a set of technical indicators, and we're watching the credit markets, and for reversal, weakening base metal prices this week is very important. So I think we can catch the top of this leg of speculation in the stock market, and we hope to.
We'll have more with Bob Hoye right after this.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic Engineer Gold Mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Hoye. Bob, if the U.S. does come through with its tax breaks, does Canada have to stay very aware of that and keep our tax regime competitive?
Oh, yeah. This is fascinating because with the federal Liberal government, it is very determined to continue building the big, omniscient and omnipotent state where everything is to be done through the state, and it knows how to spend your hard-earned money better than you do. So, and some of the stuff they've been coming up with on very selective and weird sort of tax thing on against that is really going to affect small businesses. And it's worth noting that in Canada, small businesses provide 70% of the employment of the jobs, and that's roughly the same number in the States. So now you have the U.S. working on a reform against big and corrupt bureaucracies. And the Canadians, with you get this young Trudeau in there, and I'm sure all the bureaucrats looked and said, oh boy, can we use this young lad? He'd be a good front for us to sell our ambition and desire for power. And indeed, that is what is working out. And there will be a growing number of Canadians look at the reform attempts as it continues in the States, and we'll be listening to the message of the reformers that, hey, in your face and in your wallet, government really isn't a good idea. It's like having an extra family member, or maybe two family members that you got to feed. And at the same time, in Canada, they'll be spinning a story about how wonderful government is, and but here you go. Like, sure, they're wonderful. Look at just the pipeline story. The crowd does not want, well, let's put it this way. The excited crowd, the neurotic crowd, does not want a pipeline to the West Coast because you would then have more tankers on the pristine Pacific Ocean. And yet, the attempt to build a Canadian pipeline to deliver Canadian crude to the East Coast is blocked because they continue to want to have oil tankers from Venezuela sailing through the pristine waters of the Atlantic. So this is stuff that the public will eventually question because you got to understand that a massive expansion of government is an expansion of decisions arbitrary, whereas the reform from that is back into freer markets, freer individuals, and the ability to make mistakes and pass them on or get rid of them. But when you got government going on a big mistake, you can't stop it. So it's going to be a very interesting instruction in civics coming from the States to Canada, and I believe that a reform movement in Canada can develop. I think that the federal Conservative Party is well poised for this. The leader,
don't forget
Scheer
Andrew Scheer is younger than Trudeau, and the NDP leader is now younger than Trudeau.
Yeah,
Justin's
so
the old man.
Justin's
the old man in place.
Yeah, so Scheer is a very presentable candidate, leader, and he knows the story. So I think the political games in Canada are about to get a whole lot of fascination rather than the one-way street. So, and of course it's going to be like in the U.S. where those who have been in power for so long cannot tolerate any questioning of what they do or any opposition of what they do or any skepticism. And so this is the reform movement in the U.S. is making a big gain this week, and it's setting up an example for what can be done, and we can have reform come to Canada, which, in my mind, would be quite welcome to many people once they stop and think about how many hands of the government do you want in your pockets. So, very exciting times, Jim.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, there we are. Look forward to next week.
My guest has been market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for institutionaladvisors.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for Bob or anybody else here on the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.